The arts is one economic bright spot in Tasmania. The Museum of Old and New Art in Hobart is seen as the catalyst for change and growth. The number of festivals is growing and attendances are climbing. Fiona Breen looks at the Mona effect, which some say is a blessing and a curse.
Australian countertenor David Hanson was one of the headline acts in the inaugural Hobart Baroque Festival.
All of it hasn't been heard for almost 300 years, and it's really nice to say that Australian ears will be the first to hear this music in almost 300 years.
The festival of 17th and 18th century music has already been declared a success, with performances packed.
I think Tasmania's future in terms of tourism rests on having festivals that really couldn't be anywhere else. I think it's the particularity of the event to the place, and Hobart's playing from its strengths when it sets up a festival that uses the historic buildings in this state. 1/3 of all of the heritage architecture in Australia is in this little island.
The number of festivals is on the rise, and their popularity is backed up by numbers. A report commissioned by 10 Days on the Island estimated the 2011 event added $24 million to the state's economy. Last year's Voices Festival had a 69% increase in attendances and a 140% jump in ticket sales. The ability to measure outcomes helps when trying to secure funding.
I think it's necessary as a way of prodding government into giving support. The thing that government understands is numbers, and in every city in Australia now, the tourist authorities are looking at the KPIs, how many people did we want to get from Brisbane or Sydney and how many did we achieve?
The Museum of Old and New Art has changed the arts landscape in Tasmania. 850,000 people have gone through the doors since it opened 2 years ago. It receives nothing from the public purse, but its festivals do.
David Walsh is one of Australia's national living treasures. There's no doubt about it. Mona has been extraordinary for Tasmania. But Mona for me is like a modern day Sphinx. It's half angel and half beast. I think the downside of that is that it's also competing in that very small resource pot.
Mona's latest festival, Dark Mofo, was launched in Hobart last night. It's secured $3 million from the state government over the next 3 years.
Well, hopefully, as we've proved with summer, we had about 2,500 hipsters down from Melbourne, and that's taken us 5 years to do that, and we hope to see similar results.
A range of international artists will travel to Hobart, along with about 600 interstate visitors on free tickets as part of a marketing promotion.
And now with the state government money, we're actually able to do 2 festivals a year, which means we can employ a full-time team. So that now we've got 3 full-timers in the office, and that gets to about 20 during the festival period.
Mona's summer festival, Mofo, has received $350,000 from the state coffers each year, except 2010 when it received $250,000.
But when it comes to public money and public resources, taxpayers' money, then it is competing both in that sense and also in a sponsorship sense for the same dollars that everyone else is competing.
Community arts groups are finding it hard to get their voices heard.
I think it is a scary future for individuals and I guess particularly smaller arts organisations that run on volunteers. They have to find their own money, and sponsorship's so hard to get. Everybody is asking for money.
Dr. Lehman says a move by the Tasmanian government to include the creative arts in branding is perfect for festivals, but not all artists.
The issue is partly that the measurement of things like audience engagement. How was the audience challenged? How did that that art exhibition or that dance performance add to total human experience? That's very hard to measure.
Scott Rankin has worked successfully in the community arts environment for 20 years. During that time, he's seen arts administrators adopt the language of manufacturing.
The thing you have to be careful of is that culture is not manufacturing. The arts are part of a much more organic process. It's a whole ecology where these things come from, and sometimes the language of manufacturing is useful and sometimes it's not.
About 4% of Big Heart's turnover comes from the federal government, about 2% from the state.
Well, we use the state as a great platform for importing and exporting, so we do quite a lot of work both around the country and internationally. And in actual fact, we find the quiet of the North West Coast a good place to be making work to send elsewhere. And the environment has never been better. We've had exponential growth over the last 21 years. Every year is better than the one before.
He's become adept at using the language of manufacturing when chasing sponsors, but he says it's difficult balancing demand for outcomes and creativity. He urges administrators to take risks, put money into the unknown, untested and immeasurable.
What we need is money for innovation. We need governments to be prepared to fund for the virtuosic and the sublime and the beautiful moment, the thing that is going to excite your 5-year-old daughter to want to play the violin. And that's all based in the arts.
To do that, however, it may be time for artists to work smarter.
The smaller arts organisations are very vulnerable. No political capital, no economic strength. So if it's either organise, aggregate or perish.